So I'm also an IMC graduate. Matt taught one of my classes. And I see lots of my fellow classmates. So I'm an '08 graduate and saw many more people than I expected to from our class, which has been so nice. I live in San Francisco now, and it's pretty easy, I think, in the Bay Area to feel a little like a needle in a haystack. And I'm originally from Wyoming, so to come to West Virginia, to see familiar faces, to see some people in person for the first time because we've only been classmates online, or we're only Facebook friends. Not only, I mean, we're Facebook friends. It's so nice to be here, and it's been just, I felt amazingly welcome from the moment I got off the plane. So how many people in the room have done comms plans, marketing plans of any sort? Show of hands. Okay, most people, I figured. How many of you have seen a really good plan sort of fizzle out? Everybody's super excited, it launches great, and then 2 months later, they're on to the next, whatever the next cool thing is. And Peter Drucker is kind of famous for this line, culture eats strategy for breakfast, which I'm not arguing. As somebody who's lived the last few years in employee engagement and transforming cultures and organizations, I absolutely think that's true. Strategy and planning are the easy stuff. It's culture and execution that's hard. And so today I'm hoping to share some really operational things that we've done through some case studies that might help you say, oh, that'll work in my organization, that'll work in my organization, or I can see how that, take what works and leave what doesn't. Specifically, I'm going to talk about comms planning, transformation, organizational change, the importance of the middle manager, which is very sometimes forgotten role in an organization, especially the bigger it gets. How transparency drives accountability. So I sort of view transparency as the factual version of authenticity. In marketing, we talk about it's really important to be authentic. Inside an organization, authenticity means transparency. Just show what's going on. What are you hiding? Why are you hiding it? The more you can shine lights on data and the what's happening, the easier it is to keep execution moving forward. And then some of kind of my tricks of the trade for executing or driving influence with or without authority. It's way easier to do it with authority, but it's not impossible to do it without. So a little bit about me. Thank you, Gino, for coming to this session. Beyond our awesome hairdo similarities and styles, we're also big fans of Ben Franklin, which I learned this morning in your session. And one of the reasons I love Ben Franklin so much, partly because I lived in Philly for a couple of years, and it's like sacrilege to not love Ben Franklin if you lived in Philadelphia, but also because I really romanticize this notion of being a Renaissance man or a Renaissance woman. And I think in our day and age, this driving to specialization has really, I think, fragmented us as people. So what I really want to point out to you here is I'm a lot of things. I'm a comms geek, totally. I'm also the founder of a nonprofit, Battle Tested Veterans, which uses storytelling to help shape the national narrative around veterans and their value in their post-service careers. So that's how I know some people in the audience I've done veterans work with. I obviously am a veteran. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. I'm a pain in the butt daughter. I'm a collector of nieces and a few nephews along the way, but mostly nieces. We have 6 of them, ranging in age from 2 months to 16 years old. I'm a reluctant runner, mostly because a jogger is probably more accurate. Mostly because the Air Force tells me I have to, basically. I love wine, which also probably makes me more of a reluctant jogger. I'm an MBA student. I'm an executive MBA student. I finished my MBA in July. It happens to be in wine business. It's a thing, who knew? And it's awesome. It's as awesome as it sounds. And we also have an adorable bulldog who, if any of you look at my Instagram page, you'll see tons of pictures of him on there. At Miss Liss is my Twitter handle and my Instagram, what is it called? Username, whatever. I know you have a social media contest, so a little mini prize for the person that makes me look the most awesome on Instagram in the next hour gets this awesome little critter that like vibrates when you wind it up. It's very San Francisco. Okay, so onto some serious stuff. I'm actually gonna write over here just for a couple of minutes just because Thomson Reuters is a little bit of it's a big beast. And I don't expect anybody in this room to really know Thomson Reuters through and through, so I thought it'd be helpful to give it some perspective. Oh, I should have I tested everything but the markers. Drats. Okay, so Thomson Reuters is about 50 to 60,000 people. All over the world, there's 500 different locations. Most people know us for Reuters News. Reuters and Thomson joined in 2008. It was a huge merger, but Reuters still remains the smallest part of the Thomson Reuters organization. It's only about 2,000 people, yet it's the most well-known. Then we have other business units. The biggest, most well-known, are our legal and our financial and risk businesses. They help lawyers do what they're supposed to do. We provide access to case law. They help investors do what they're supposed to do and keep them honest. Hopefully it works more than it doesn't. We have the tax and accounting business, which helps accountants do what they need to do. Legal and tax and accounting are primarily US-based businesses. And then we have the intellectual property and science business. See, I'm testing like my spelling skills. I'm gonna do public math later too, and you guys, it's gonna blow your mind, I promise. So I work for the intellectual property and science division. We have about 3,500 people. Mostly highly skilled, highly educated workforce. These are people who are chemists, scientists, academic researchers, and they're professionals helping other professionals do their work. No doubt West Virginia University is a customer of our Web of Science product. We're very well known in these spaces, but not as Thomson Reuters. So in 2014, I was leading the internal communications team. And that year, those 3,500 people experienced 9,000 changes. Direct report changes, title changes, reporting line changes, a lot of change. 2 to 3 changes per person on average. It doesn't count. I care about my coworker, they also experienced change. They were laid off, right? So there's this sort of like halo effect as well. And really what I want, the first case study that I'm going to try to share with you is how we applied integrated marketing communications approaches and military education or military operations approaches to helping our organization through this process. And not only were we able to sort of use these theories and approaches to endure over 2014, but we actually increased our employee engagement by 7 points. And for the first time in our division's history, we hit the $1 billion revenue mark. We'd been trying for about 4 years. We thought we were close and we could never get there. So amidst all those changes, we actually were able to succeed. And like I said, part of it's because we used an integrated marketing approach. At this time, I'm a few years away from the program. I've been building comms plans and strategies for a few years, and we made sure, just like in integrated marketing, where you look at your brand from all of these different ways that people can experience and touch it. That's the view we took, is how many different ways can we interact and touch and engage with our employees. So from March 2014 to February 2015, we had our leaders and our greater organization post about 150 blogs on our Jive-based intranet, for those of you who geek out about corporate intranets. We had 99, almost 100 in-person events in 1 year hosted by our leaders. We made sure that those events and those blogs were all consistent and coordinated in their messages. And they used that principle of people need to hear and experience something 6 to 20 times for it to start to make a difference. That's what really drove this. We weren't saying 100 different things. We were saying the same 5 things over and over again, over and over again. And just when people started getting irritated by hearing it, we'd tell them again. We targeted leaders and managers, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And one of the ways that we did that was through topic-specific newsletters. So by now you could be asking, what the heck does this have to do with the military, Melissa? I'm so glad you asked. I was a journalist in the Air Force for 10 years before I transitioned to the reserves. How many people saw Good Morning Vietnam? Totally amazing movie. So sad Robin Williams is no longer with us. Adrian Cronauer was his character in Good Morning Vietnam, a real dude, still lives in DC. Was a radio DJ, news guy in American Forces Network in Vietnam. That's what I did. My first assignment was AF in Spangdahlem, which was in Germany. I tell you, life is rough, but somebody's got to be in the military, people. This is me in Iraq. I spent 4 or 5 months basically traveling around Iraq to all sorts of different places, telling the American and coalition forces stories, submitting those stories to the Pentagon Channel, which has since been, I don't know what the right word is, it no longer produces video. It was definitely focused on the global war on terrorism. An interesting thing about this photo, I was actually in this program, the IMC program, when we took this. In 2008, there were massive floods in Midwestern United States. So all the really exciting places like Iowa and Missouri and Indiana. I spent 3 weeks on the road covering National Guard units that were helping their communities either protect themselves against the floods that were coming down their way or helping them recover. And so I would go out and shoot and come back to my hotel room and I'd write my story, and once it was submitting, because this was 2008 and the internet was not as good as it is now, it would take like overnight to actually get to the bureau. Then I would do my homework for Hugo Perez's class, and he was relentless. So I know that there are days in this program where you're like, holy flippin' crap, like, please tell me it's worth it. It is worth it, I totally promise. Finally, I was able to get my commission. So I went from an enlisted broadcaster to a public affairs officer. I'm stationed at Beale Air Force Base in California. If anybody been, it's near Sacramento. Anybody been near, okay, close. And really these experiences taught me some lessons that I still use today. Number one, it's always about people. Nobody cares if it's not about people. It does not matter what your leader wants to say. It does not matter what the strategy is. What they care about is how does it affect me, my friends, my colleagues, even that person that I really don't like that I always have to work with. It's really about people. The picture on the top right is hilarious to me. This is at the Naval Academy. President Obama is giving a speech, probably about national security. Look how much they care. On a side note, I've been through both basic military training and officer training school. Only difference is that at basic military training, you get sleep. Officer training, you don't. Like literally, you get yelled at about the same amount. But one, they really want to teach you how to make good decisions and how you're going to respond in less than ideal circumstances. So they sleep deprive you. So I totally understand why they're sleeping. But again, it's because the speech isn't about them. The speech is about national foreign policy or something that when you're a cadet, you just don't care about. One interesting proof point to this is, we had 149 blogs, remember? 3 of them accounted for a massive amount, a disproportionate amount of engagement. 20,000 views, 125 or more likes, 30 comments. These weren't extraordinarily well written or deeply connecting blogs. These were, this person got promoted, this person now reports to this person now reports to this person. What does that tell us? People care about people. Strip the BS. 2 really fun things that we did to engage people. One was we hired a video production company to ask people why did they work for our company. And one video crew went to 7 different locations around the world, interviewed 25 different employees, and we made a really awesome video, if I do say so myself. It got 7,000 views on our intranet. Remember, we only have 3,500 people in our business. It had 180 or so likes, 135 comments, and we asked people to, in the comments, post your own answer to the question. Why do you stay? So not only were the comments, wow, great video, it was a 1 to 2 minute video of themselves saying, this is why I stay. So the second lesson that integrated marketing in the military sort of taught me that was applied here is that as you cannot undervalue or underestimate a plan and an execution, which is the inspiration behind sort of this talk. When I was in Iraq, one day we went to deliver sheep to local families and community leaders in Baghdad because it was the Prophet Muhammad's birthday. This is a very important time of year in the community, and we wanted to show our support for the people who had been supporting us. And so before that, I mean, we're just going out in Humvees. We're with a civil affairs group. We all stand around a Humvee. We put some maps, topographies, like all sorts of stuff that at the time I was like, I don't even know what the hell this means, you guys. I hope you don't, am I supposed to understand this? Somebody's got to understand it. And we talked through scenario after scenario after scenario. This was planning, buy-in, making sure people understood everything that we were doing. And so that applies to this extended period of time, right? This plan that we had at Thomson Reuters was a year in the making, not a 4-hour mission in Baghdad. But we used the same elements. We had regular check-ins. We were constantly making sure that people were bought in. We were communicating our success so they would keep staying engaged all along the way. Side note, this picture is from operations in Haiti after the earthquake. I met my husband in the military. Can I use that? That guy right there, that handsome man is my husband. I sometimes get a little narcissistic in my presentations and have a lot of photos of myself and my family. The last lesson before we sort of move on to the last case study is really the power of the manager. In the military, that person is typically called the non-commissioned officer or the NCO. I have a prize. Anybody care to guess the breakdown of enlisted to officer in the military? How many enlisted, what percentage of enlisted?
Depends on which branch. I mean, Air Force is very officer heavy.
Just throw out a number.
Let's say 30% enlisted in the Air Force compared to the rest of being officer.
So okay, what do you think the other services are?
The opposite, the exact opposite.
The Army, I was in the Army, so I'd say about 85 to 15 enlisted up.
So the average, here, will you pass that down to him?
Yeah.
The average is 85% of our military are enlisted. Is that surprising to any non-military people in the room? No? And yet we hear a lot about officers, right? I feel like that's all we ever hear about in the media.
And yet the jokes from the enlisted people are about that enlisted exist to keep the officers out of trouble.
That's sort of true. As an enlisted, as an officer, enlisted people help keep us officers out of trouble. So the same is, think of the same applicability of that stat in an organization. You know, your officer corps in the military, which is about 15, maybe 20% depending on the service, are your senior level leaders in an organization. So the people that actually get shit done are the managers. It's not the leaders. They're manifesting, they're philosophizing, they're positing. So what we did was we began to prepare them to be a communication channel. The single most influential person in an employee's life at work is their direct manager. Hands down. You don't quit a company, you quit your boss. So what we were doing is we were treating them like special people in this process because they are. We gave them advanced notice for everything that happened. hey, tomorrow, this really confidential thing is going to happen, and you're so important to this process, we're trusting you with this information so that tomorrow when your employees come and ask you questions, you know the answer. You're not getting the massively different information at the same time, right? Because the change curve hits us, we kind of panic, we kind of go down in denial, so we allowed them time to get further down the change curve before their employees found out. We targeted monthly emails to them to tell them what they needed to know and to prepare them to be those ambassadors. We had special sessions, we had engagement workshops with them. We treated them like the valuable execution arm they were in the organization. And I think, single-handedly, this made the difference. So you may be able to tell by the next topic, this might not be as inspired by the military. But I do, this is much more inspired by the last year of my life, being a chief of staff in an organization. And actually, a few weeks ago, I took over as a global head of program management. So obviously, my roots of execution love run very deep. It's the stuff that I love. I love ideas, but I love seeing an idea come to life. I like seeing it happen. Anybody know what the Panama Papers are? In the green, can you tell us what they? Anybody want to share with the group what the Panama Papers are?
Yeah, it has to do with different prominent people across the world who hid monies and had banks in Panama.
Yep. So it was a list of basically people that were funneling money to certain parts of the world so that they maybe didn't have to pay taxes for that money. So transparency driving social change. We saw it in the 70s when a group of lawyers found the documents that said the asbestos companies knew exposure to asbestos caused cancer. We saw it in the 80s, manifested in the 90s, when we saw, when it came to life that those companies, those tobacco companies, knew nicotine was addicted and they sold it telling us it wasn't. We saw it in Erin Brockovich, right? That company, that plant, knew they were making people sick. Transparency, external to an organization, drives social change. In an organization, it drives execution. So one of the ways that we were a very opaque organization, and we still are in many, many ways. It's a work in progress. We literally started weekly operations meetings. Now those meetings are attended by about 75 people, not just in technology, all over the organization. These are slides from last week's presentation, so this is no joke, real shit. The top right is a release update. Here's some of the releases. We do about 150 releases, technology releases a year across our portfolio. Here's what a particular set of releases are. Here's how they're tracking to their deadlines. Here's what's going on with them. The top left is a quality report. How many bugs are in our system that are impacting our customers? And how are we tracking to our goals? The bottom right, how many customers calls we've gotten in the last week related to our technologies. In the middle, how are we doing on running the proper security tests? Which products have done them, which are in the last 6 months, which haven't done them in the last 6 months? Why haven't they done them? When are you going to do them? And this one I probably shouldn't have used because it doesn't really show driving to execution, because you can see here we're 100% out of compliant. But this is basically, we're not allowed, or we're discouraged from booking travel within 2 weeks of the travel date just to help the company save money, because we all know that airline tickets get more and more expensive the closer you get to the date. We show about a 45-page deck every single week with data like this in it. And we ask people to give us not a status update, not tell me all the reasons why you're not doing what we said we would do, but tell me what you're doing about it, and when are we going to be back on track? I think some people could call this public shaming, and to them I would say, never underestimate the value of public shaming, but I would say that this power lies in the leadership style of your boss. if you use this as a device to berate and shame your colleagues or the people that work for you, then it is sort of using a powerful tool not for good. And we try very hard not to do that. One of the things that we look at, let me show you this video first. So one of the other ways that we started driving transparency in our organization is through a new development model. How many people have heard of Agile methodology? Okay. So one component sort of before Agile, Amazon calls it two pizza team model, meaning no team should be bigger than what you can feed with two pieces of pizza, holy crap, 2 pizzas. We call it 312, and basically it's a way to plan and execute and get agreement before you go into development. And so we launched this last year. We just reached our 100% adoption of 312 in our organization. And I just wanted to show you a little video about what 312 is, and then we'll talk about how it's really impacted our organization.
Technology.
Maybe. Wait for it. It's gonna blow your mind. I hope I'm not overselling this.
Technology is changing the way the world does business. Think about it. Technology is us. We are changing the way the world does business. So in this transformational time where the expectation is fast response, often immediate, transparency, and superior quality, we have to be flexible in our execution model to meet the evolving demands. How do we do that? How do we increase our velocity, react to changing market requirements, and prioritize our deliverables for our customers and partners? With the 312 model, what we've learned is that smaller, self-organized teams are the combined skill set the project needs. The team and one team lead will be selected by the leadership team. The team determines the project scope and defines the deliverables clearly and in a demonstrable way, then sets the timeline. It can be as short as 3 weeks and as long as 12 weeks. If it's a project that requires more time, the team will divide it into smaller projects and follow the 312 model sequence. Finally, all projects will be public, since transparency is the new architect. The flow doesn't get bottlenecked or stalled, and everyone can collaborate in one place. Since a project is an execution and delivery unit in our organization, the 312 model enables us to gather feedback from our stakeholders and better align our overall product and technology strategy. When a project meets its timeline and its intended delivery, then we'll label it a success. And the 312 model will move us in a forward direction, increasing our velocity, allowing flexibility, and enabling our focus. 3 to 12 people, 3 to 12 weeks. The 312 model, a commitment that happens not by direction, but by collaboration, and with the agreement of all team members. Let's do this together.
So you'll see some of the same kind of fundamentals of driving decision-making down into the organization, really empowering the manager. I think I had mentioned it, but we reached our 312 adoption point. We probably got to about 97% towards the end of last year, since at 100%. And in the time that we've seen 312, I gotta go back to my other screen, sorry. In the time that we've seen 312 at 100% adoption, here's some statistics that I think will show you what transparency in delivery can look like. Up on this side, you'll see this is sort of the risk that we were reporting in our projects in the last half of 2015. So we averaged 12% roughly. Since the adoption of 312, we're averaging 8%. So that means more projects are being delivered on time than we've ever been able to track. And we attribute this largely to this transparency. There's more accountability, people know what's going on. People then are able to ask questions like, well, why are you guys doing it that way? If we did it this way, we could do it faster. The other thing I want to show you is this is the number of days a release typically gets pushed. We've only started tracking this in 2016. But what you can see, especially in this space right here, this is our life sciences portfolio of products. Some of you who've heard of Cortellis or Integrity may have heard of these products. Before, these projects were averaging a week delay in delivery a month. Now we're less than 5 days. So it's incremental. We are changing the way our organization executes through transparency. So it's not social change, not to the scale of changing laws about asbestos or getting people reimbursed for the damages caused, but it's changing an organization that is huge and it's hard, but you can do it. Who knows what capitalization, anybody want to shout out, like, what does it mean to capitalize something?
Calculate the ROI on investment.
Yeah, for us it means the money we spend building an asset. So maintaining our products is operational expense. The money that we invest to actually build something is a capitalizable asset. One last way I want to show you that transparency has driven accountability is every month, if you can imagine, we have about 1,200 technologists in our organization. They have to account for their time every single day. They have to go into a system and they have to tell us, what were you building? What system were you working on? What sort of work were you doing? Because that allows us as a publicly traded company to say how much money we're investing in making our products better versus how much money are we just paying to keep the lights on. It's really important for a publicly traded company to do this accurately. Week over week, this is the same 2 periods from 2015 and 2016. The blue line, the dark blue line is 2015. The light blue line is 2016. The average out of compliance, so there's about, let's say, 1,200 time cards, right? Roughly 1,200 time cards a week. Average out of compliance was about 10%, 9-10% in 2015. In 2016, that number's 5% over the same period. That's an improvement of almost 50%, 44%. Like, this means something for our finances, like really tangible operational stuff. If you look at the monthly view, which is actually the one for us that's more important because we close our books at the end of every month, this is what our finance people use to then report to our company, which then reports to the shareholders. In 2015, that number was 16% out of compliance. That's roughly 750 time cards that, because they aren't submitted, we just have to count them as operational expense. In 2016, that number's at 3%. Yeah, it is. This doesn't include May. Last month, we had 0.02 out of compliance. We've never seen it that low. And it's an 81% improvement. It's not only transparency that's driving this number, but transparency is enabling a conversation to occur. Why aren't you capitalizing? Why aren't you doing what you're supposed to? And it's allowing us to then discover process issues we can fix and we can do something about, instead of just beating people over the head. Fill out your time cards, fill out your time cards, fill out your time cards. I know, we can only talk about how awesome time card compliance is for so long. You guys are like, thank God that part's over. So the last kind of little bit before we open it up for questions, I just really want to sort of share some of my own learnings that have worked to help gain influence without authority. I think this is something that in curriculum in general for us probably isn't explored enough. It's one thing to be good at your job. It's another thing to be able to convince other people that you're good at your job. When I started at Thomson Reuters, I was a communications specialist. I was in rooms with people 20 to 25 years older than me, and I'm telling them how they should lead and talk to their people. So I had to establish credibility. So a couple of lessons. When you can, borrow from the authority of somebody else. The first person that gave me a break at Thomson Reuters was our CFO. And he said, Melissa, I want you to come to my leadership meetings. You are now a part of my leadership team. So even though by far I had the least seniority in that room, the fact that he wanted me in that room and he gave me some of his credibility made it easier for me to do my job. Part of that is because I aligned my objectives with his objectives. Mike, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want your employees to do? Let's tackle that first. And then it was a little bit easier to borrow his authority, because you can't kind of throw out, well, Mike said that we had to do this, right? You can only say that for so long before people are like, yeah, all right, Melissa. When you hit a tough spot, don't keep hitting the wall in the same spot every single time. Move down the wall. Move down the organization or across the organization. If that one person won't believe that you know what you're talking about, go to the person who will. And be successful with them and measure that success and tell other people about it and get them to tell other people about it. Because then, all of a sudden, other people are saying, wow, man, that Melissa Boatwright, she might know what she's talking about. They might say that. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But that helps you build a reputation in an organization. A reputation that when somebody is in the room and they're like, not sure that person's right for the job, another person will say, really? I think they're great. Why wouldn't they be? Look at what they did with this, right? So you're building advocates. You're building, if you will, if you'll indulge me, sort of an army of people that will get your back when you're not in the room, which cannot be underestimated in corporate America. And then we have a joke in my house, I don't quite understand how I got sort of to be this way. I really do think everybody's my people. I'm like, Gino has my haircut, he's my people. You're from Nebraska, I'm from Wyoming, you're my people. You're from Colorado, I'm from Wyoming, you're my people. My husband's like, Melissa, everybody cannot be your people. I'm like, but it touches my state, they're my people. And so I think kindness is a really undervalued asset. And so the better you can make connections, the faster you can make connections with people, the more authentic you can make those connections, the easier it is to influence an organization. Sure, you can influence through bullying without authority, but pretty soon you'll bully your way out of influence. And when all else fails, you can use a Jedi mind trick. You will do what I tell you. You know I know what I'm talking about. Before we open it up for questions, just a quick recap. You know, none of this is rocket science. A lot of this you guys probably already know innately and might not have the words for it. You're like, yeah, totally, that makes sense. It's just about getting the basics right. It's about building a solid foundation. It's about minimum viable product. Make the plan as easy to implement as possible. Make it easy to measure success so that you're not trying to wordsmith your way into, oh, this is why it was successful. And then lastly, you know, when I finished this program, when I left the military and I finished this program, I thought, I'm gonna go into PR. I'm gonna do corporate comms work. And then I found out, God, I really don't like it. It's a weird revelation for a comms person to have and admit, because at that point, I've already been in comms for 20 plus years. You know, I started in communications when I was 15. This program, applying IMC approaches and fundamentals, makes me a better chief of staff. It makes me a better program manager. And so what I would encourage the current students and even the fellow graduates in the room to remember is this stuff matters in lots of different parts of your life, not just in the comms work that you do.